You're listening to A Deeper Dive, a part of the Winsight Podcast Network.
No one out-pizzaed the Hut in the first quarter. Can Pizza Hut keep it up? Hello, this is Jonathan Mays, Editor-in-Chief of Restaurant Business, and in this week's episode of A Deeper Dive, I speak with David Graves, the President of Pizza Hut U.S. Pizza Hut struggled for years, but appears to have turned a corner more recently. The company's sales outperformed its rivals in the first quarter thanks to a combination of factors. We talk about some of those factors, including the chain's use of third-party delivery aggregators and the chain's new Melts product and its ability to generate sales at a different time of day. We also talk about nostalgia for the brand and its classic casual dining locations, and why nostalgia has worked for the company recently as a marketing tool. And we talk about a host of other issues, including technology and artificial intelligence. We're talking about Pizza Hut this week on A Deeper Dive, so please have a listen. Okay, I'm here with David Graves. David, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Jonathan. It's great to be here. Appreciate you having me.
All right, explain the pickle pizza.
Look, we're getting into wanting to learn, wanting to innovate, so we started up a learning lab in New York. We're trying a lot of different things. So it's always interesting what people tend to talk about in the news, but I'm excited the team is learning. Pizza Hut's a brand that's always been an innovator, so we're excited to learn and try new things.
Mm-hmm. So are you a pickle pizza fan, by the way?
I am a pickle fan, and if you haven't tried that pizza, it is really good. But, there's certain things you'd think like, hey, they just don't belong together. And then when you put them together, surprisingly, they're better than you expected. So sure. It's a delicious pizza. You should definitely try a pickle pizza if you get a chance.
Mm-hmm. I am a pickle pizza skeptic, but I am also somebody who is fully acknowledges that there are large numbers of customers that love nothing more than to put pickles on pizza. So God bless them.
It's surprising. Pickles on pizza, everything goes in ranch these days. You think about how people want to eat. Maybe they don't agree with you, but when we listen to the customers, we want to absolutely give them what they want. So it's going to be interesting to see how that does and what we learn in that learning lab there.
Yeah. People are allowed to disagree with me. It's perfectly fine. So, but that does lead into one of the big topics I want to talk to you about, and that's sort of the innovation. And the one that I've been particularly impressed with is Melts. Because of the impact that it's apparently has had on your business. Talk a little bit about that and where the idea come from and talk a little bit about that process.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you bringing it up. The team did a great job developing Melts. They really listened to the customer. If you pull back, Pizza Hut is a brand that was built on innovation. It has this kind of all-star cast of named pizzas that everybody would love to have, whether that's the original pan pizza, original stuffed crust. We had the Pizzone, which was the original handheld that we launched. And actually, when we pulled back and we asked ourselves, hey, how do we create an amazing handheld product that can win in an individual occasion? We talked with customers and they said, hey, we love the Pizzone, but we want to be a little less bready, more toppings, more abundant. And so the team went to kind of design Melts based on that. So if I pull back and think about why has that really worked, it's really four things. It's a really craveable product that customers love. And I think, look, we're in the restaurant industry. People want craveable food, so we can't ever lose sight of that. It's got to be an amazing product. It's targeted to an incremental occasion and customer. So it was really designed to go after an individual occasion, an individual eat for a younger customer. And it's done that. So we see earlier week part, earlier day part coming in. We actually see an incredible repeat rate as well. And part of that is because it's at a great value. So when you can get the right value for the customer, you see people come back more frequently. So it's done that as well. And then the last thing is it's a distinctive marketing idea, right? It comes in a really distinctive way, enough for two, price for one. So it's really delivering that value in a very compelling way. So we hear a lot of customers play that back for us. And so what we've seen is people love it. They come back. We've had it in the business really since the fall. It's been adding to the business pretty consistently since then. And that's really the strategy with innovation overall, Jonathan. It's like you think about Melts came in the fall, Big New Yorker came in earlier this year. That's had a big impact on our business as well. And Melts really went after that individual occasion, which we think we can really make headway in but pizza is really traditionally a group occasion. Big New Yorker was a great value against the group occasion. So those were like a nice 1-2 punch for us when we think about innovation in Q4 and Q1 of last year.
Are people coming in and getting melts at different day parts, or are they adding it to their order, or is it both?
You see a little bit of both, to be honest. So we absolutely see it's overdeveloped. People come in earlier in the week, actually, and they come in earlier in the day. So it's helping to build a lunch business. But still, the business is really predominantly at that peak day part and dinner. And we see a lot of people adding melts on. So it's also a way for someone who wants a pizza, somebody else wants to get something different, they can add it on, and they've got that product for one that goes with a pizza that maybe feeds the family.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So is that, obviously, product innovation and is something that you're going to continue to push for. I mean, you've been doing that now really for the last couple of years at this point, which is hitting with some brand new products, but as well, you also have been sort of dusting off some old ideas, sort of tapping into nostalgia for Pizza Hut with some of the products that you've been putting out.
Yeah, absolutely. It's got to be a mix of both. When I came onto the business right in 2020, and one of the first things, I think anytime you get to work on an iconic, loved brand like Pizza Hut, you say, hey, when this brand was at its best, like, why was it really thriving? Why did people love it? And, I spent some time actually in the first few months, didn't know there was a pandemic coming in January of 2020. So it's good we did this in the first few months. But I spent some time actually the first couple of weeks on the job. I went to Wichita and visited the original Pizza Hut with some of our original franchisees that were actually in the Pizza Hut on the first night when it opened. And you just start to look at, like, what was this brand built on? And there were a few things, but one of them was all about, we had the best, most craveable food, and we were the innovator in the category, right? There's some things around service. There's some things around being talked about. So it was really clear, like, we want to be a brand that serves pizzas you can only get at Pizza Hut. We want to be the innovator. That's what makes this brand special. And that's why we had, the original pizza we launched was a thin crust pizza, which a lot of people don't know. But then pan pizza came really with delivery because thin crust pizza didn't deliver that well. It was an innovation for delivery. And then we wanted to continue to innovate. Then we had all of these pizzas that customers love from the past, different LTOs. So there's an opportunity to bring those back. But really at the core, it's about how do we serve pizzas you can only get at Pizza Hut? And how do we make pizzas that people love and really craveable, great food? And when we do that, we can be successful. So we've been dusting off some old classics. We think we're going to create some new iconic classics. And you'll probably see some more of those things coming out as well. But we're excited about the power of innovation and what that can do for the brand, both to bring new people in, but also to drive top line growth and to power franchisee profitability as well.
Mm-hmm. So let's go back maybe a little, more than a year now, I believe. And there was a serious driver shortage that I probably don't need to remind you. And you guys probably giving some pizza executives some PTSD. So, but you then you started working with aggregators. Could you talk a little bit about how that's gone and has
absolutely.
Did that ease your driver shortage?
Well, look, aggregators kind of do a few things for us. I think there absolutely was a labor shortage, and that played through in a driver shortage. We're at a place now where we're seeing that improving. But I think when you look out into the future, labor is going to be tight for a while, and so we're going to have to be creative in terms of how we manage labor. Aggregators was really a purposeful choice for us that starts with the customer. To be honest, my background is in customer and customer understanding. One of the things I've learned is, like, when the customer votes and they tell you what they want to do, you want to go meet them where they are. They really want to be on aggregators. They want to shop there, especially younger customers. So what we see with aggregators is it's a different customer. It's a different occasion. So we actually talk about it as a fourth selling channel. Like, you've got delivery, you have carry out, we have dine in, and now we talk about third party marketplace and aggregators as a fourth channel that we need to manage. We see those customers to be different. Right. And so actually we need to manage each of those channels independently. You talked about the relationship of that to the labor shortage. Yeah, absolutely. We use aggregators as a supplemental labor solution. And we did that during the time when we were really having a labor shortage that was more pronounced than what we see today. And that really helped us specifically at peak And in some of those places where maybe we were talking earlier about lunch and you don't maybe have a driver that can deliver at lunch, we have access to a supplemental labor pool that can do that. And that's a way for franchisees to really tap into new labor pools that they can use to meet the demands of our customers. So that is absolutely a place that we've used it. I think our belief on aggregators is there's going to be customers who want to shop in a third-party marketplace. I have young kids. They think about the third-party aggregators as a place to go. They think about it as a brand, like a restaurant brand, in the same way we might think about Pizza Hut. But there's also a really important role for own channels. I think the two of those things can coexist. And if you look into other categories, whether that's hotels or anywhere else, there's absolutely a way for these two things to coexist. And that's what we think will play out over time.
Mm-hmm. My sense of it is, in fact, I pretty much know this, is that a lot of restaurant operators it's been tough for them to swallow the idea of working with aggregators. We see it playing out with one of your rivals right now, but it's been kind of tough to swallow because, it takes, the customer relationship out of your control. And then they've kind of learned that, like, look, this is something that we're going to have to do because a certain percentage, to your point, there is a certain percentage of customers that really do like using these apps. I don't think there's any question about it.
Yeah, it's an opportunity, right? And I think when change happens, you've got to see the opportunity in that, right? And like I said before, if the customer decides that they want to use an app, I think it's better to figure out how do we meet them where they are and do that successfully than to try and convince them they're wrong. I've actually tried to convince the customer they're wrong a few times previous in my career. It's never worked out well. So for me, it's very clear what they want to do. Now for us, it's about how do we build partnerships and do that in a way that's conducive to our business and allows us to create a win for us and a win for our franchisees. But I fully agree with you. That's a tough concept to get your head around because historically, you run your own business, you manage that entire end-to-end customer relationship yourself. But the world is changing faster than it's ever changed before. And a lot of times people say to me, hey, the pandemic really accelerated change. I actually just think technology is accelerating change, and probably the pace of change that we have today is likely the fastest we've ever seen, but probably we'll never see it be slower than it is today, right? And so we have to be accustomed to that change and be willing to learn and pivot with it, or it's going to be difficult to win. And so, that's why you talked earlier about something we're doing, learning in New York, we're learning with aggregators. I think we can build the business that way.
Yeah. That's actually a great point. A lot of this change was coming anyway, whether it was sped by the pandemic or not. A lot of the things that we're seeing now are coming anyway. Speaking of change, the thing I think is fascinating about Pizza Hut, and I don't think people really appreciate this, is just how different Pizza Hut is today than the Pizza Hut even 5 years ago, and certainly the Pizza Hut that I grew up with the red cups and the pan pizzas and the jukebox and the Pac-Man game. Are you done now roughly converting? Is it basically done converting to a almost all delivery and pickup concept now?
Well, look, like I said earlier, we have 4 channels of our business. They're all really important to us, right? And we have to be careful to not speak in averages because, yes, while we've largely converted to a delivery and carry out business, dine-in is a critical part of a business for certain franchisees. And in rural America, dine-in business is still a really big part of our business. And in certain geographies, it's a big part of our business. So dine-in is going to always be a part of Pizza Hut. And frankly, the story that you're telling is not that different than my story growing up in a Pizza Hut. And it's partly what makes it so fun to work on this brand. It's a loved brand that whenever I tell anybody I work on Pizza Hut or my job, I inevitably hear a story about, red cups and jukeboxes and Pac-Man and all these great memories. So for me, we're driving a conversion in our system towards where the customer is going, but dine-in will always be a part. And it's about how do we take the things that make Pizza Hut great right? So we talked earlier, food, innovation, service, really being culture, being talked about. You were talking about the experience. And then how do you do that in a really modern way? Because sometimes I think people talk about nostalgia and nostalgic brands, and I always remind them there's actually a lot of old brands that you don't think of as old. They're timeless brands, and that's because they're innovating, right? So that's what you're seeing with Pizza Hut is let's take the things that made Pizza Hut great. Let's innovate on them. Let's modernize them. So, we did the Pac-Man game, but we did it on an AR box, right? So how do we do modern things that work in our business model today that build on what makes Pizza Hut great? And so that is where we're headed. And we're going to continue to lean into the things that made Pizza Hut great back when you were a kid and you were describing your childhood, but you're going to see us do those in really innovative and creative ways. And so it taps into what makes Pizza Hut special, but does it in a modern way and really makes the brand timeless. And I think, the dine-in channel will always be there. It's going to be a small part of our business, but to certain folks, it's going to be really important, an important part of their P&L.
Yeah. How big of a percentage is it at this point?
It's a lot smaller than it was, as you can imagine. During COVID in particular, and during the pandemic, dining rooms closed, and so it went almost to zero. But it's growing fast for some franchisees now who are out in certain markets where it's the restaurant in that town, and our franchisees do a great job of building relationships with their local communities and serving a lot of different occasions. So. It's growing really quickly, and we'll see how big it gets.
Yeah. Well, that was a kind of a big and complicated transition. That wasn't just innovating. That's overhauling the complete brand, and not too many situations quite like it. It was very different, obviously, and took a long time. That said, I miss the dine-in Pizza Huts. Not gonna lie.
There's plenty of them around there, and come visit us, and we'll go to a dine-in Pizza Hut together, and we'll have salad bar and pizza buffet. Look, it's not the core of our business, but for folks who want that experience, we want to be able to give it to them.
Right. So I want to run this quote by you. Might have heard this. Greg Flynn, who now I believe is your largest franchisee at RLC, said that he could see a situation in 10 years where Pizza Hut is fully automated. What's your thought on that?
Well, look, technology is going to impact everything that we do. I've seen us talk about a number of concepts that we think could be fully automated. Look, food is a really personal business. People want to interact with people. And so I think there will always be people in a restaurant doing jobs. What I'll tell you is we're going to have to embrace technology. We're going to have to embrace automation, because running a restaurant is more complicated than it's ever been in the past. Like I was just in a restaurant a few weeks ago, and I was talking to a manager, and she was talking about how, and she had been there for like 30 years. And she was talking about how it used to be just, hey, you order on the phone, or you walk in and you order and you sit down and you either carry it out or you deliver it. Today, it's like coming in through aggregators, there's so many ways that someone can order, and so many ways that we fulfill that. And so using technology in the back of the restaurant to create a smart kitchen, to help make some of those decisions, to automate some of the processes. And so you're seeing us move towards that. And I think the restaurants that win are going to have to continue to automate, and they're going to have to continue to build technology into their restaurants. And so we're doing that really aggressively. I'm sure you've seen us talk about rolling out Dragon Tail technology, which is smart kitchen and production sequencing in the back of house, which really just starts to take some of the decisions off of the RGM. It helps us, what we see, deliver hotter pizzas, faster pizzas. So we're in a little over 1,000 restaurants now and expanding that really quickly. But the other thing it does is it frees up the team members to do the things that they can only uniquely do at the restaurant level, which is talk to customers, serve customers. And so I think that is where we're headed in the immediate term. And then look, the world's going to continue to change, and where we go as we go forward, I would expect to see more and more of automation, AI, that type of technology coming into the restaurant space.
Yeah. How's the Dragon Tail doing?
Well, it's doing great for us. I mean, like what we see very clearly is when you put Dragon Tail into the restaurant, We see pizzas get to customers faster. We see them get there hotter. So obviously that impacts our customer satisfaction scores. We see that show up in our research. But more than that, I think probably the test of it is you go and talk to an RGM who puts it in, and maybe anytime change comes into an RGM's restaurant, they people will embrace it differently. But when you talk to them and you ask, hey, would you feel good if I took this out? They're always like, no, do not take it away from me. And so like that to me is a sign that, hey, it's doing what it's supposed to do because our team members want to keep it and they find value in it.
Yeah. I think the issue of getting pizzas to customers as hot as humanly possible. I mean, that's kind of quietly this real area of competitiveness among the really largest restaurant chains, and whether it's pizza or burgers or chicken sandwiches. I mean, we're seeing a lot of innovation, a lot of technology on that, which is the idea of not just taking a task away from a manager, which is important, but the idea that it's improving the customer experience and assuring that the customer gets their food, their delivered pizza, for instance, as hot as humanly possible, which obviously is increasingly important given the competitiveness of the industry. It's just it's kind of this quiet but very, very, very important trend in the industry right now.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, look, the blocking and tackling, it's about getting 1% better every day on the things that really matter to customers. Hot food, getting what you ordered, they don't sound like rocket science, but these are the things that when you do them really well every single day, customers notice and they come back to you for them. And you see that in the data. And so Dragontail, as an example, is using technology to help us do that. But I agree. And as you start to have more complexity in the fulfillment process, the opportunity for failures gets higher. And so we've got to put a lot of solutions, technology, things at play to help us make sure that we deliver on the core expectations. Look, we're a restaurant company. You've gotten cold food before, I'm sure. I have. This is not a good experience. And so I don't think we should be surprised that temperature really matters. People want craveable food when they come to restaurants. So we've got to do everything we can to make sure that they get their expectations.
Yeah. And customers do have higher expectations of restaurants these days. Big question I want to ask you is on delivery. So fascinating, sort of a fascinating situation sort of playing out in the delivery world. Your biggest rival has had some significant problems with delivery demand. Yeah, I just don't see it when we look at like your DoorDashes of the world and your Uber Eats of the world. We don't quite see it yet, at least based on the numbers that they're providing. Though, some other restaurant chains say they've seen some slowing growth or declines or whatnot. Where's delivery at with you guys right now?
Well, for us, look, I think it's all about how you define the market, right? Mm-hmm. And we talked earlier about aggregators. There's a lot of things going on in that market right now. So there's channel shifting between owned and third party. I do think those customers are different as well. What really encourages us is when we look at the overall market, the overall delivery market for food is meaningfully larger today than what it was prior to the pandemic. And a lot of that's being driven by new channels. I mean, you frankly can get anything delivered today. The amount of pizza being delivered is not smaller than it was prior to the pandemic. So it's really all about, hey, how are you meeting customers where they are and making sure that you're winning those occasions? So I do think where people are shopping is changing. But I actually think it's a massive opportunity, right? So we might have some new competition, but in that we can compete for new customers and new occasions that previously maybe we weren't considered for. And so that's actually the way that we see it, is we have a big opportunity in front of us. It's why we're doing things with innovation, Melts as an example, to go compete for the individual occasion, because we have an opportunity to compete for these occasions that we could compete for before, but it was not as it was less obvious, right? And what we see now is an individual occasion market that's multiples larger than the group occasion pizza market that we can go compete for, and we can actually deliver food in that space. And so I think it's all about how you define the market, but our data would say the pizza delivery market is not declining. Maybe where that market exists is shifting.
Huh. Interesting. How big of a competitor is a grocery store for you guys? We saw like frozen pizza sales last year took off.
Yeah, everyone's seen that article, right? Look, it's all about share of mouth, like, share of stomach, right? So if someone's buying a frozen pizza, we're going to have to win a different occasion, and so absolutely, grocery is a competitor, as are a lot of different. Like, we don't just compete with national pizza chains. We compete with everybody. And so that's why we have to really think about how we win multiple occasions. And that's why things like melts and some of the innovations that we're doing allow us to compete for more occasions. But absolutely, we see switching with the grocery channel. And it would be naive to think that that's not the case.
Yeah. Walmart's pizza sales in the first quarter up 30%, which is just insane. That would probably give me nightmares, which leads me to my next question. What's keeping you up at night?
That was a good transition off nightmares. Look, it's all about how do we continue to keep up I talked about the pace of change. How do we continue to drive change and keep up with the pace of change? So what we talk about is, you've got to be changed. If you're not changing faster, I think it's an old quote, Jack Welch quote. If the world is changing faster outside of your company than inside of your company, you're moving towards a not good place. And so our goal is we have to continue to drive change and innovate, and not just on products, but on technology, the way we connect with customers. And so that's our focus. How do we get faster? How do we become more decisive? How do we innovate faster? How do we move quicker? So that is absolutely something that keeps me up at night, and something we spend a lot of time talking about. And then just our people, look, our people at the restaurants, they're tough jobs. And so how do we make sure that we are simplifying it, making it as easy for them as possible, putting them in a position to be successful? So we're spending a lot of time thinking about how do we simplify our back of house. Last year, we took over 30 kind of tools, smallwares out of the restaurant just to make it easier to make pizzas. And so we want to really get up to a place where our team members can thrive and put them in a position to be successful. So that keeps me up at night as well. And but I'm really optimistic about where we're headed. Pizza's a great place to be. It's a great value for customers, and so we have every reason to believe we can continue to grow and win in this market if we do the right things for our people and we continue to innovate and keep up with the world that's changing around us.
All right, super. Last and toughest question: what's your favorite pizza topping?
Favorite pizza topping or favorite pizza?
Mm-hmm. Oh, no, favorite pizza. Fine. Favorite pizza.
Okay. No one's ever asked me topping. That's a harder question. I'll think on that. But for me, favorite Pizza Hut, thin and crispy Pizza Hut pizza, extra cheese, pepperoni, jalapeno. But we talked about hot earlier. Get it right out of the oven. That's when it's the best. Yeah, sure. Sausage and mushroom for me is always. In fact, you're not a good pizza restaurant if you don't have a good mushroom pizza. That's how I judge. I was blown away when I joined Pizza Hut to see how many people I love mushrooms, but I think of mushrooms as a relatively polarizing ingredient. A lot of people get mushrooms on their pizza. Pepperoni mushroom is a big pizza. Yeah.
Sausage and mushroom, grew up with it. I've had many very delicious mushroom pizzas in my time, and some very bad.
Well, get out there. We'll do a pepperoni sausage mushroom pizza together.
All right, super. All right, David, this was fantastic. Really appreciate the conversation.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thanks for having me, and look forward to catching up again soon.
And that should do it for this week's episode of A Deeper Dive, which was edited, as always, by Kimmy Kazmarek. Artwork by Nico Hines. You may find this and other episodes of the podcast on our website at www.restaurantbusinessonline.com/article/deeper-dive. And you may find them on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or anywhere else you get your podcasts. I'm Jonathan Mays, your host, podcast producer, and the editor-in-chief of Restaurant Business. Thank you for listening.